The Ardennes Forest, December 1944, was a place of shadows and whispers. Private First Class Arthur Lynch, a rifleman with the 28th Infantry Division, was lost. A German counterattack had shattered his company, scattering them into the frozen ancient woods. The fog, thick and soupy, swallowed sound and light. He was alone, separated from his unit for over a day, his rations gone, his mind playing tricks on him in the endless, silent white. Every crunch of snow under his own boots sounded like an enemy approaching. As dusk began to bleed the last light from the sky, he saw it, a faint, flickering orange glow deep within a dense thicket of pines. It was not the flash of artillery or a burning vehicle. It was steady, like a fire in a hearth. Hope, desperate and treacherous, sparked in his chest. He moved toward it, his numb fingers tight on the trigger of his M1. Pushing through the snow-laden branches, he found the source, a low, camouflaged entrance to a bunker almost completely hidden by the terrain. The bunker was not American, nor was it a standard German defensive position. It was old, perhaps from the last war, reinforced with rough-hewn timber. The glow came from a small fire pit just inside the entrance. The air smelled of wood smoke, damp earth, and something else, something metallic and coppery. He called out a hesitant, "Hello?" His voice was swallowed by the oppressive silence. He was met with no challenge, no greeting, only the crackle of the fire. Driven by cold and a need for shelter, he stepped inside. The main chamber was small and circular. A single German officer, his uniform impeccably clean despite the setting, sat on a crate, staring into the flames. He did not look up. He seemed expectant. On a makeshift table beside him lay a single, ornate box, carved with strange, swirling symbols that looked both familiar and utterly alien. The officer slowly raised a hand and pointed a single, pale finger at the box. "Öffne sie," the officer whispered, his voice dry as dead leaves. Arthur didn't speak German, but the command was clear. "Open it." He raised his rifle, but the German made no hostile move. He simply kept pointing. A deep, primal dread settled in Arthur's gut. This was wrong. Everything was wrong. The silence was too deep. The air was too cold. The fire cast long, dancing shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own, against every instinct. Arthur found himself stepping forward, his rifle lowering. His eyes were locked on the box. It was made of a dark, polished wood, inlaid with tarnished silver. The symbols seemed to pulse in the firelight. He reached out a trembling hand. As his fingers brushed the cold lid, a wave of nausea and vertigo washed over him. He heard a distant, echoing scream that seemed to come from both inside his head and from the very depths of the forest outside. He flung the lid open. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded black velvet, was not a weapon or documents. It was a collection of bones, small, delicate, and meticulously arranged. They were finger bones, human, from dozens of hands. Each was carved with the same intricate symbols as the box. Arthur stumbled back, gasping, his heart trying to beat its way out of his chest. He looked at the German officer, who now had a faint, terrible smile on his thin lips. "Sie hören jetzt auf dich," the officer whispered. "They will listen to you now." Before Arthur could react, the officer's form seemed to waver, like a heat haze over asphalt. The fire flickered violently, and for a single, horrifying second, the man was not there. In his place was a skeletal figure, its uniform hanging in tatters, its eye sockets dark and endless. Then he was solid again, still smiling. A cacophony of whispers erupted in the bunker, speaking in a dozen languages, pleading, threatening, crying. The shadows on the walls contorted into writhing, human-like shapes. Arthur screamed and bolted for the entrance, scrambling out into the freezing night. He ran without direction, without thought, the whispers following him, clinging to the trees, carried on the wind. He could feel them, cold and insistent, at the edges of his mind. He ran until he collapsed from exhaustion, the phantom whispers finally receding as dawn broke, gray and weak. He was found hours later by a patrol from the 101st Airborne. Delirious and half-frozen, they dismissed his ravings about a whispering officer and a box of bones as combat fatigue, the dreaded shell shock. He was evacuated to a field hospital, the incident officially recorded as a psychological breakdown. Weeks later, recovered and reassigned, Arthur was on a routine patrol near a different sector of the front. They cleared a captured German command post. In a discarded footlocker, amidst maps and mundane paperwork, he found it, a faded pre-war photograph of a German SS officer, a renowned occultist who had vanished from Berlin in 1943. The man in the photo was the same man from the bunker. The caption named him Standartenführer Albrecht von Jürgen. The discovery chilled him to the bone. It was proof he hadn't been mad. That night, the whispers returned. They were clearer now, forming a single, repeating phrase in broken English: "Find the rest. Make us whole." He began to have waking visions, seeing skeletal hands reaching for him from trench walls, hearing the faint, dry rattle of bone on bone during the quiet moments. The war had broken his body, but this encounter was breaking his soul. He started to find things: a single carved phalange in his ammo pouch, another tucked into his bedroll. He tried to throw them away, but they would always reappear. The whispers became his constant companions, a secret war within the war. He knew, with a terrifying certainty, that the box in the bunker was only a piece of a larger, more horrifying whole, and that the officer, whether man or phantom, had chosen him for a reason. On the eve of the Allied crossing of the Rhine, his company was billeted in a bombed-out library. While searching the rubble, a book fell at his feet. It was a grimoire, a book of occult rituals. It fell open to a specific page. The illustration showed a box, his box, surrounded by chanting figures in robes. The text described a ritual to bind the unquiet dead to a master, using their carved bones as anchors. The ritual required a willing vessel to complete the transfer of power. The last line of the text was handwritten in the margin, in crisp, familiar German script: "Der Kreis schließt sich bald." "Arthur, the circle will close soon, Arthur." He looked up from the page and saw him, standing across the rubble-strewn street, untouched by the destruction around him. It was the officer, Albrecht von Jürgen. He gave a slow, deliberate nod, and then turned and walked into the shadows, leaving Arthur with the crushing knowledge that his war was far from over, and that the truest enemy was one no bullet could ever kill.